Cyber Threat Brief for July 18, 2026. Inc. Ransomware exploits 2 Sonic Wall 0 days in active attacks with a CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, deadline today. WordPress ships forced updates for WP2 shell, an unauthenticated remote code execution chain hitting 6, 9 and 7. 0 installs. Siemens patches 3 chain 0 days in industrial switches that deliver root access. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Cybersecurity Brief, July 18, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. Ransomware exploits Sonic Wall SMA 0 days. CVE 2026-15410. CVE 2026-15409. Inc. Ransomware is exploiting 2 0-day vulnerabilities in Sonic Wall Secure Mobile Access 1000 series appliances to gain initial access, steal credentials, and deploy ransomware across enterprise networks. CVE 2026-15409 is a server-side request forgery flaw with a CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, score of 10. 0 that allows unauthenticated attackers to trick the appliance into making internal requests. CVE 2026-15410 is a code injection vulnerability scored 7. 2 that enables OS-level command execution from the admin console. When chained, the vulnerabilities allow attackers to escalate from unauthenticated outsider to root-level insider. Rapid7 observed Inc. Ransomware using the flaws to establish persistence by stealing credentials, session databases, and one-time password seeds, then moving laterally to domain controllers. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added both CVEs to the KEV, known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog on July 14 with a remediation deadline of July 17. EPSS, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, scores are low, 1.5% and 1.3%, despite active exploitation, indicating automated scanning has not yet caught up. Action: patch SMA 1000 series appliances immediately. CIS, a KEV deadline was yesterday, July 17. Audit domain controller access logs for lateral movement from SMA appliance IPs. Rotate credentials and invalidate active sessions for users who accessed SMAs during the exposure window. Sources: Dark Reading Rapid7. WordPress WP2 shell remote code execution chain, CVE 2026-63030, CVE 2026-60137. WordPress shipped forced updates Friday for an unauthenticated remote code execution chain affecting all 6, 9 and 7. 0 installs. The WP2 shell attack chains 2 bugs. CVE 2026-63030. REST API, batch route confusion, and CVE 2026-60137, SQL injection in WP query. An anonymous HTTP request can exploit the batch endpoint to bypass input validation and inject SQL through the author not in parameter, leading to code execution. WordPress 6.9.5 and 7.0.2 patch the full RCE chain, while 6.8.6 patches only the SQL injection since the batch confusion does not exist in 6. 8. A working proof of concept is public on GitHub. The RCE path only works when sites are not running a persistent object cache, narrowing the blast radius. WordPress enabled forced auto updates, but has not confirmed whether this reaches sites with auto updates disabled. Action: verify WordPress version immediately. Sites running 6.9.0-6.9.4 or 7.0.0-7.0.1 must update to 6.9.5 or 7.0.2. Sites on 6.8.0-6.8.5 should update to 6.8.6 to patch the SQL injection. Do not assume auto-update landed. Check actual running version. Review access logs for post requests to /wpjson/batch/v1 from untrusted IPs. Sources: The Hacker News. Siemens ROX Roman 2 0-day trilogy, CVE 2025-40949, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 disclosed 3 chain 0 days in Siemens ROX Roman 2 operational technology switches that allow attackers to escalate from reconnaissance to persistent root access. CVE 2025-40948, CVSS 6.8, exploits the XZ utility running with root privileges to read arbitrary files including credentials and keys. CVSS 7.5 is a command injection flaw in the feature key validation function that grants root access. CVSS 9.1 allows authenticated attackers to inject commands into the root cron table, establishing persistence across reboots. Siemens released firmware version 2.17.1 to patch all 3 vulnerabilities. EPSS scores are low, 0.5%, 0.4%, 0.3%, indicating no widespread exploitation yet. Palo Alto Networks has virtual patching signatures available for next-generation firewall customers, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: update Siemens ROX Roman 2 devices to firmware version 2.17.1. If patching is delayed, deploy virtual patching via Palo Alto NGFW signatures or isolate ROX Roman 2 devices from untrusted networks. Audit ROX Roman 2 access logs for unauthorized file reads or configuration changes. Sources: Unit 42 Palo Alto. 40 Sandbox critical flaws under active attackers are exploiting critical vulnerabilities in Fortinet 40 Sandbox, prompting CIS to issue a patch order. The register reports active exploitation, but does not provide CVE or common vulnerabilities and exposures, details, or technical specifics in the extracted content. The vulnerabilities affect 40 Sandbox appliances used for malware analysis and threat detection. Action: patch 40 Sandbox appliances immediately. Monitor Fortinet security advisories for CVE numbers and patch releases. Review 40 Sandbox access logs for unauthorized activity. Source: the register. Next section: business and infrastructure threats. ACR Stealer uses click-fix lures to steal browser tokens and Microsoft 365 files. ACR Stealer, active since 2024, uses click-fix social engineering lures to trick users into pasting malicious commands that deploy an info stealer. Microsoft Defender experts tracked campaign activity climbing from late April to mid-June 2026. 2 infection chains exist. One writes to disk, the other runs almost entirely in memory. Both chains steal saved browser passwords, live session tokens, PDF, Microsoft 365 documents, and files from synced OneDrive and SharePoint folders. The fileless chain spawns MSHTA exe to pull HTA content containing a VB script loader that decodes PowerShell, which then retrieves a JPEG from an image host with the payload hidden in the pixels using steganography. The malware targets Chrome and Edge login databases, invoking DPAPI to decrypt passwords, cookies, and tokens. Microsoft's remediation guidance instructs victims to revoke tokens, not just rotate passwords. The campaign uses fake Claude AI pages delivered via malicious Google ads and sites. Google.com URLs. Red Canary observed Claude-branded lures in April 2026, delivering ACR Stealer through fake GitLab pages. Action: deploy Microsoft Defender experts if available. Block execution of MSHTA exe via AppLocker or WDAC policies unless required for legitimate workflows. Educate users on click-fix lures that instruct pasting commands into run boxes. Revoke all active session tokens for users who reported suspicious command prompts. Monitor for Runlil32 exe loading DLLs from web DAV shares. Sources: The Hacker News. Microsoft. NadMesh botnet hunts exposed AI services for Cloud Keys and Kubernetes. Tokens. A Go botnet called NadMesh is targeting exposed AI services including Comfy UI, Alama, N8N, Open Web UI, Langflow, and Gradio to harvest AWS keys, Kubernetes tokens, and cloud credentials. The operator's dashboard claims 3,811 unique AWS keys captured. Kai and Zin's XLab published research showing the botnet uses Shodan to populate scan queues with AI workflow tools that teams deploy quickly without firewall hardening. The malware exfiltrates cloud keys from environment variables, K8 service account tokens, and contents of ~oz/config, env and ~docker/config, JSON files. The controller prioritizes MCP, Model Context Protocol, exploitation, specifically targeting tools /call to execute command via JSON RPC. However, XLab sensor data shows 30% of exploit traffic targets Docker containers, API RCE, and 22% targets Jenkins scripttext RCE, indicating the botnet still relies heavily on traditional vectors despite the AI targeting. The scanning system resamples successful subnets every 5 minutes and blacklists targets that absorb 10 deployment attempts without results to evade honeypots. 5 build versions run concurrently. Action: audit all Comfy UI, Alama, N8N, Open Web UI, Langflow, and Gradio deployments for internet exposure. Implement authentication on all AI services. Move exposed services behind VPN or Zero Trust access controls. Rotate all AWS keys, Azure credentials, and GCP service account keys if AI tools were exposed. Enable CloudTrail and Azure Activity Log to detect unauthorized API calls from stolen credentials. For MCP deployments, enable the optional authorization flow added in March 2025 rather than skipping authentication. Sources: The Hacker News Kai and Zin X Lab. OpenSSL HoloByte flaw freezes server memory. CVE 2025-66199. CVE 2026-34183. OpenSSL shipped patches in June with no CVE, no advisory, and no changelog entry for HoloByte, a denial of service vulnerability that allows an attacker to send 11-byte TLS handshake headers, claiming up to 131 kilobytes message bodies that never arrive. Unpatched OpenSSL servers allocate memory based on the claimed size before validating the message, then wait indefinitely for the body. On GLIP systems, the memory never returns even after the connection drops because the allocator holds small and medium chunks for reuse rather than releasing them to the kernel. The attack varies claimed sizes on each connection to prevent allocator reuse, causing heap fragmentation. Okta's red team testing showed a 1 GB server reached OOM kill with 547 megabytes frozen, and a 16 GB server lost 25% of memory without crossing connection limits. Fixed releases are OpenSSL 4.0.1, 3.6.3, 3.5.7, 3.4.6, and 3.0.21, all dated June 9. OpenSSL's security team classified this as a bug or hardening fix, not a vulnerability, so no CVE was assigned and no advisory was published. Standard connection limiting defenses do not stop HoloByte because the memory fragmentation persists after connections close. Action: Update to OpenSSL 4.0.1, 3.6.3, 3.5.7, 3.4.6, or 3.0.21, all released June 9, 2026. Review OpenSSL versions on Nginx, Apache, HA Proxy, and other TLS terminating services. Monitor resident set size (RSS) on TLS servers for unexpected growth. Sources: The Hacker News Okta Red Team. Starland R8T delivered via Trojanized remote desktop tools. A Russian threat actor tracked as UAT 11795 is distributing Trojanized installers for WebEx, Zoom, MOBA Xterm, dbeaver, and Face IT to deploy the Starland Remote Access Trojan. Active since June 2025, the actor targets users in the United States, Germany, Romania, and Venezuela. The infection chain starts with a malicious HTA file that retrieves an NSys installer hiding a Python loader disguised as a text document. The loader modifies the Windows registry for persistence before decrypting and deploying Starland. The malware verifies it is not running in a sandbox, creates scheduled tasks, attempts privilege escalation, and scans for browser data, cryptocurrency wallets, antivirus products, and Active Directory infrastructure including domain structure and controllers. Starland can capture desktop screenshots, execute arbitrary shell commands, and fetch secondary payloads. Depending on system architecture, the malware injects 64-bit shellcode to deliver Castle Stealer or 32-bit shellcode to deploy Rumco's RAT. The operators integrate redundant command and control communications to maintain persistent access. Action: Block execution of HTA files via group policy or app locker. Deploy EDR to detect NSys installers dropping Python loaders. Monitor for scheduled tasks created by user-writable directories. Scan Active Directory for unauthorized enumeration activity net, exe dsquery, exe LDAP search, audit registry run keys for persistence. Source: Sentinel-1 blog. Golden iDog subgroup linked to DigiCert breach and code signing certificate theft expel attributed the April 2026 DigiCert security incident to Cylindrical Canine, a subgroup of the Chinese cybercrime group Golden iDog, also tracked as APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, Q27. Dragon Breath and Muty Group. A threat actor used a modified GH0st RAT variant called Golden GH0st RAT to access a DigiCert support member's device via a malicious ZIP file disguised as a customer screenshot sent through a support chat channel. The attacker used a support portal function to intercept initialization codes for approved EV code signing certificate orders across customer accounts. DigiCert revoked 60 certificates across 4 CAs, with 27 confirmed used to sign malware. The group primarily targets gambling, gaming, and finance organizations in the Asia-Pacific region. The malware is delivered through NSys installers masquerading as legitimate programs like Google Chrome and Microsoft Teams, and more recently through suspicious links sent to Web3 customer support staff. Action: Review code signing certificates issued by DigiCert in April 2026 against DigiCert's revocation list. Scan for executables signed with revoked certificates. Implement certificate transparency monitoring. Train support staff to never execute files received through customer chat channels regardless of file type. Use isolated virtual machines for reviewing customer-submitted files. Sources: The Hacker News Expel DigiCert. Next section, Ransomware and Extortion. Russians sanctioned for bulletproof hosting enabling ransomware. The U.S. unsealed indictments against 3 Russian nationals, Alexander Volosovic, Yulia Pankova, and Kirill Zadalakin, for operating bulletproof hosting services that facilitated over $62 million in ransomware damages. The defendants allegedly managed MediaLand and ML Cloud, providing infrastructure to Lockbit, Play, and Black Suit ransomware groups. The hosting platforms actively shielded cybercriminals by ignoring victim complaints and disregarding law enforcement takedown requests. The U.S. Treasury also sanctioned First VPN Service, 1VPNs, and its administrator Dmytro Rashevsky for supplying VPN infrastructure that helped ransomware operators obscure identities and manage stolen data. The service ignored abuse complaints and maintained 0 user logs. Yevgeny Sileyev was sanctioned for developing cryptors to conceal malware. The State Department is offering a $10 million reward for information regarding foreign government links to these hosting providers. Source: Sentinel-1 blog. Armenia detains Russian tourist on U.S. warrant for our evil hacker. Armenia has detained Alexander Ermakov since June 28 at Yerevan's Zvartnots airport on a U.S. extradition request for our evil ransomware suspect with the same name. The man's lawyers argue Washington has the wrong person. The U.S. wants Alexander Gennadievich Ermakov, sanctioned by Australia, the US, and UK in January 2024 for stealing 9.7 million records from Metabank Private and dumping some on the dark web. That Ermakov is serving a 2-year Russian sentence barring him from leaving Russia, according to TASS. The detained man is Alexander Yuryevich Ermakov from Omsk, a former prison service lawyer who does not speak English. Russian passports carry a patronymic middle name derived from father's name that distinguishes individuals with identical given names and surnames. The U.S. charging document accuses the suspect of participating in Sodinokabai/R evil attacks from April 2019 to July 12, 2021. The Interpol notice built on the charging document identifies the suspect as one of R evil's administrators with proceeds over $13.7 million. Metabank was hacked in October 2022, 15 months after the charging window closed. The defense's theory is that U.S. paperwork carried only a given name and surname without the patronymic, and an automated check matched the wrong person. Armenia is holding the man on a 30-day Interpol detention order while Moscow requests consular access. Source: The Hacker News. Next section, IOCs and Detection. Otter cookie malware hidden in SVG flag images targets developers. North Korean threat actors linked to contagious interview are using steganography in SVG image files to conceal Otter cookie malware. Elastic Security Labs tracked the campaign, Ref 9403, after attackers targeted members of its community Slack workspace with fake job offers in late May 2026. A user named Maxwell posted on the #jobs channel seeking a developer for an e-commerce platform upgrade using Next.js v14, Nest.js, PostgreSQL, and Auth.js. Interested candidates were directed to complete a coding assessment from a Trojanized GitHub repository. The repositories contain functional code, but embed malicious payloads in base 64 fragments inside HTML comments across SVG flag images, AE, SVG, AF, SVG, etc. A JavaScript file, server validation. JS assembles the fragments and executes the payload on each server boot. Otter Cookie has 4 modules: browser and crypto wallet credential harvesting, file collection matching specific extensions, socket, IO-based RAT for remote control, and clipboard stealing. The malware targets AI coding tool extensions including Claude, Cursor, Gemini, Windsurf, Piri, and Llama configuration files. Action: educate developers on contagious interview tactics. Scan developer workstations for server validation. JS files and SVG images containing HTML comments with base 64 strings. Review GitHub repositories accepted from untrusted sources for obfuscated code. Monitor outbound socket I/O connections from developer machines. Audit access to Claude, Cursor, and other AI tool configuration directories. Sources: The Hacker News, Elastic Security Labs. Next section, General Security News. Microsoft at Black Hat USA 2026. Supply Chain Attack Focus Microsoft Security will present research at Black Hat USA 2026, August 4-6, Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, focusing on supply chain attacks and AI-powered threats. David Weston's keynote, The End of Rare. Defending when offense is cheap, examines security operations when offensive capability becomes easier to access, automate, and scale. Arti Borkar and Tanmay Ganacharya, will present Poisoned at the Source. Inside the Hunt for Supply Chain Attacks, detailing Microsoft Threat Intelligence's investigations into ongoing NPM supply chain campaigns targeting software ecosystems and developer workflows. The sessions frame the challenge that when offensive capability scales easily, security teams must understand trust paths threat actors can abuse before attacks occur. Microsoft will showcase Defender Experts Threat Intelligence and Defender Experts MDR with third-party and multi-cloud coverage at Booth 2144. Source: Microsoft Security Blog. White House launches Gold Eagle Vulnerability Clearinghouse. The White House launched the Gold Eagle Vulnerability Coordination Clearinghouse on July 14, 2026, to coordinate vulnerability response in anticipation of large language models fundamentally changing the vulnerability landscape. Gold Eagle is built on VINCE, Vulnerability Information and Coordination Environment, from Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute. The clearinghouse coordinates and deconflicts scanning for software vulnerabilities, validates discoveries, and prioritizes remediation and patch distribution across open-source software partners and critical infrastructure companies. The initiative is voluntary collaboration with the AI industry and aims to leverage frontier AI capabilities to deliver faster exploit detection and prioritized threat information across sectors. Details of the ultimate implementation remain unclear. Security experts note that the cross-sector vulnerability coordination gap is real, as the KEV catalog, NVD, and ISAC do not address cross-sector prioritization. Critics describe Gold Eagle as a coordination process wearing a technical systems clothes rather than new infrastructure. Source: Dark Reading. Google bets agentic defense strategy can outpace attackers' Google Cloud integrated WIS capabilities into a new agentic defense platform to automate threat detection, investigation, and remediation. Following its $32 billion acquisition of WIS, Google is positioning the platform as a shift from human-led to AI-led cyber defense. Francis D'Souza, Google Cloud COO and President of Security Products, cited the MTrends 2026 report showing the average time from initial breach to handoff of access to another threat actor collapsed from 8 hours 3 years ago to 22 seconds. Google integrated WIS attack surface management with Google Threat Intelligence, so WIS ingests posture and workload telemetry from Google Cloud, enriches detections with threat intelligence, and pushes prioritized exposure data into SecOps playbooks. The integration builds on Google's AI Threat Defense launched in May, combining Gemini reasoning with WIS's scanning, simulation, and remediation. Google claims it is the only security company with a chips-to-code-to-cloud stack including its own AI infrastructure, processors with GPUs, Gemini models, and now WIS's platform to deliver agents. Source: Dark Reading. European Commission orders Google to open Android to rival AI assistants. The European Commission on July 16 ordered Google to give rival AI assistants the same access to Android sensors and system features that Gemini has, including camera, microphone, screen contents, wake word detection with the display off, and background app automation. Google must ship the changes in Android 18 by August 1, 2027 at the latest. The decision under the Digital Markets Act opens 11 operating system features, with 5 requiring certification, centralized data access via app search, context-aware intelligence, structured on-device integration via app actions, screen automation via computer control, and system integration for settings, /media, /screenshots, /notifications, /power. 6 features carry no certification requirement at all and are open to all third parties. Ambient data, continuous microphone, camera, screen, location, and sensor access in the background, always-on hot word detection, long press invocation, system-level on-device models, third-party model implementation, and background execution. Google must establish a qualified AI assistant program, allowing third-party trusted certification authorities to certify assistants free of charge. Google writes the TCA program's terms and decides who gets approved as a certifier, on terms that must be reasonable and non-discriminatory and cleared with the Commission 2 months before changes. Source: The Hacker News. 7 malicious Vite NPM packages use blockchain C2 checkmarks discovered 7 malicious NPM packages, codenamed Vite Venom, targeting the Vite front-end tooling ecosystem using blockchain-based command and control infrastructure. The campaign is an expansion of Chainveil, which uses a 4-tier blockchain C2 spanning Tron, Aptos, and Binance Smart Chain to deliver a RAT with reverse shell, credential harvesting, file exfiltration, and backdoor capabilities. The packages, published between June 29 and July 3, 2026, use scoped names to impersonate the @Vitage /* namespace. At 0010010/Vitetree, 1070 downloads. At Vitab/tab, 289. At Vitaln/build TS, 252. At ViteMCP/ViteType, 239. At VitePro/ViteUI, 200. At Vitet/ViteTS, 194. And at ViteTS/ViteUI, 176. Malicious code executes at import time, not install time, limiting endpoint security detections. Load or queries the Tron blockchain for the latest transaction from the attacker's wallet, decodes the transaction data to obtain a BSC transaction hash, queries BSC to extract the encrypted payload, and decrypts using a hard-coded key. The blockchain infrastructure is nearly impossible to take down because payload pointers are stored as transaction data on public blockchains rather than on domains that can be seized. The packages share Tier 2 infrastructure with Chainveil, including the same Tron wallet and Aptos account addresses. Action. Scan package. JSON files for at 0100010/Vitetree, at Vitab/tab, at Vitaln/build TS, at ViteMCP/ViteType, at VitePro/ViteUI, at Vitet/ViteTS, and at ViteTS/ViteUI. Remove immediately if found. Rotate all credentials on affected systems. Audit, BashRC, ZSHRC, and profile for unauthorized modifications. Deploy NPM audit hooks to block scoped packages impersonating trusted namespaces. Sources, the Hacker News checkmarks. GoSerpent malware targets Southeast Asian governments. Kaspersky discovered GoSerpent, a Go-based malware targeting government and diplomatic entities in Southeast Asia since late 2025 for long-term access and intelligence gathering. GoSerpent contacts an external server to deploy secondary payloads focused on sensitive data collection and credential dumping. In May 2026, the threat actors returned with evolved tools including a new stowaway RET, proxy tool, and Thumbcache service for exfiltrating data collected over months through network shares. Malware receives encrypted and base 64 encoded command line arguments containing the C2 address and communication password. Once decrypted, the backdoor connects to the C2 over an encrypted connection using the SHA-256 hash of the communication password as the encryption key. GoSerpent can establish SOC 5 proxy servers to route traffic through compromised hosts, deploy additional tools including Thumbcache service, file collection DLL, dynamic link library, Mimikatz credential dumping, and Quark's dump local hash, local account password hash extraction. The threat actors use MX RET, a lightweight Go-based proxy and RET, stowaway, proxy and RET with SSH-based tunneling, TMC loader, C++ loader, and TMC payload, data exfiltration tool. Earlier variants of the malware have been used since 2021 against Southeast Asian victims. Source, the Hacker News. Spirals ransomware targets IT firm. A newly discovered ransomware variant named Spirals was deployed in an attack against an IT services firm in Asia. Security Week's roundup mentions the discovery, but provides no technical details on capabilities, encryption methods, or attribution. Source, Security Week. Crash Stealer Mac OS malware masquerades as Crash Reporter. Security researchers uncovered Crash Stealer, a novel Mac OS information stealer written in C++ that disguises itself as a legitimate crash reporting application. The malware exfiltrates sensitive user data, credentials, and system information from compromised Apple devices. Its stealthy design evades standard operating system defenses by mimicking native password prompts, making it difficult for users to distinguish malicious requests from legitimate system dialogues. Source, Security Week. Steam games used to drain crypto wallets. The FBI arrested a Florida man accused of uploading fake video games containing malware to Steam, the popular PC games platform. Once victims downloaded and installed the games, the malware infected computers, stole passwords and other data, and drained cryptocurrency wallets. The case highlights the risk of malware distribution through trusted software platforms. Source, data breaches. Net. Next section, patch priority. Sonic Wall SMA 1000 series, CVE 2026-15410, CVE 2026-15409. Critical, CIS a KEV deadline was yesterday, Inc. ransomware actively exploiting. WordPress 6, 9 and 7. 0 CVE 2026-63030, CVE 2026-60137. Critical, unauthenticated RCE, public proof of concept available. Siemens ROX Roman 2 industrial switches, CVE 2025-40949. Critical. Chain 0 days deliver root access and persistence, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. OpenSSL Holobyte. High silent June patch causes memory exhaustion DOS on all unpatched TLS servers. 40 Sandbox. Critical active exploitation, CIS a patch order issued. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. Core DNS Remote DOS Vulnerabilities. Microsoft published 2 CVEs for Core DNS Remote Denial of Service Vulnerabilities. CVE 2026-62309 is a Proxyproto plugin panic on PPv2 datagram with non-UDP transport, allowing a single 28-byte packet to crash Core DNS remotely. CVE 2026-62299 is a rewrite plugin ends zero response revert nil pointer panic when a downstream plugin returns a response with no OPT record. Both have low EPSS scores, 0.4% and 0.3%, and Microsoft provided only minimal details. Sources: MSRC. Squid Proxy Vulnerabilities. Microsoft published 2 CVEs for Squid Proxy. CVE 2026-47729 is a memory disclosure vulnerability in the FTP gateway with an EPSS score of 1.9%. CVE 2026-50012 is a memory corruption flaw in cache digest reply handling with an EPSS score of 2.3%. Both vulnerabilities affect Squid proxy servers, but Microsoft provided no technical details. Sources: MSRC. Chromium vulnerabilities in Microsoft Edge. Microsoft published 2 CVE records for Chromium vulnerabilities affecting Microsoft Edge. CVE 2026-15904 is a use-after-free vulnerability in Ozone. CVE 2026-15903 is an out-of-bounds read and write in V8. Both were assigned by Chrome and addressed in Chromium updates that Microsoft Edge ingests. Sources: MSRC. Joomla extension vulnerabilities. Attackers are exploiting vulnerabilities in iKagenda and Balboa Forms extensions with perfect 10.0 CVSS scores on Joomla websites. The flaws impact the open-source CMS that powers 1 million sites worldwide. The register's roundup mentions active exploitation, but the extracted content provides no CVE numbers or technical details. Source: the register. Next section, Trends and Context. Today's stories show a clear pattern of attackers following trust. Inc. Ransomware exploits VPN appliances that organizations already trust for remote access. WordPress's WP2 shell chain abuses the REST API batch endpoint to bypass validation. DigiCerts breach leverage support staff access to intercept code signing certificates. North Korean actors hide malware in functional code repositories developers trust. The blockchain-based NPM supply chain attacks replace domain-based C2 with immutable transaction data defenders cannot seize. Cross-supply chain, VPN gateways, and developer tooling. Attackers are targeting the software, services, and workflows organizations already depend on rather than looking for vulnerable systems. The shift from 8 hours to 22 seconds for initial access handoff means human-led detection and response cannot keep pace with machine speed attacks. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech. Stay patched, stay vigilant.